Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and Restless official. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Tucker found Ashley at his hotel room door. She stormed in and confronted him about the things he'd said downstairs about her being afraid of commitment and not allowing herself to be happy in a relationship. Tucker dared her to prove him wrong. Ashley condemned him for convincing himself that she was the one with the problem, but Tucker maintained that she was rewriting history. She snapped that she knew exactly what he was trying to accomplish. Tucker warned that Ashley wouldn't be able to provoke him into losing his temper and turning over a table to validate her story. She barked that she wasn't the one playing games. He reasoned that if it were a game, he'd be having some fun, but he assured her he wasn't. She accused him of gaslighting her, but he questioned what he stood to gain. Ashley contended that it was retaliation to punish her for refusing to leave Chabot. Tucker retorted that she'd never known him at all. Ashley called Tucker selfish, smug, and narcissistic. Tucker calmly stated that he'd never been motivated by the need to inflict harm on others, especially not on someone he loved. Ashley spat that Tucker should be ashamed of himself for throwing around the word love as if it meant nothing. She groused that he'd used it as a way to control her, but he countered that she'd proven she lacked nothing and needed no one, including him. He swore that he would have done anything for her, and all he'd wanted in return was love, respect, and commitment. Tucker continued that he'd wanted to be a partner to Ashley on all things in all ways, but she hadn't been able to give that to anyone who didn't share her DNA. He declared it game over for him, and he was moving on. Tucker recommended that Ashley give up her obsession about what had happened in Paris, since the moment as she recalled it was unrecognizable to him. He suggested that she hop on her fancy jet, go to the bistro, and talk to the waitstaff about what had happened that afternoon. Tucker expected that she'd be surprised by what they told her. Ashley walked out. At the Abbott mansion, Ashley flashed back to her memory of her encounter with Tucker in Paris, where he'd angrily smashed a glass, knocked over a chair, and yelled in her face to go to hell. Her thoughts shifted to Tucker's much calmer version of the same moment. She sat down and willed, "Get out of my head. I know what I know." Tracy entered the room and sensed that something was wrong. She implored Ashley to tell her what was going on so she could help. Ashley told Tracy about how her memory of Tucker's violent temper differed vastly from his recollection of them simply having a normal argument that he'd walked away from. Ashley ranted that he kept telling her that she was misremembering and had the whole thing wrong. Tracy contemplated what Tucker had to gain by making Ashley believe she'd distorted reality. Tracy acknowledged that Tucker was no Prince Charming, but she'd never thought of him as the kind of man who would pull wings off butterflies. Ashley confirmed that he wasn't, and she'd never known him to be violent with anyone. Ashley instructed Tracy to pretend she was writing a novel. Tracy envisioned her characters being a powerful executive and a sketchy Lothario, and she revealed that she usually let the characters talk to her. Ashley argued that it wasn't who she was to make something up. Tracy growled that if Tucker was gaslighting Ashley, he'd wish he hadn't once Tracy got through with him. The sisters embraced. Tracy expressed concern that Ashley was doubting her memory. Ashley relayed that Tucker thought she was rewriting history as a way of pushing him out of her life because she was afraid of commitment. Tracy contended that there were three sides to every story, and in that case, there were Tucker's, Ashley's, and the truth. Tracy pondered how they could get closer to the facts. "I know of a way!" Ashley exclaimed. At the psychiatric facility, Claire awakened to find Nikki standing next to her bed, and she asked if it was a nightmare. Nikki assured Claire that she was awake and didn't need to be afraid. Nikki explained that she'd wanted to see for herself how Claire was doing. "To help me?" "Why would you want to?" a surprised Claire asked. Claire recalled that Nikki had already saved her life, but Nikki pointed out that Claire had also saved Nikki's. Claire accepted that Nikki had every reason in the world to hate her. Nikki agreed that she had every reason to hate Claire, but she didn't. Claire groaned that Nikki pitied her, which was even worse. Nikki recognized that what had happened to Claire had been cruel and relentless, and Claire hadn't been able to help but be a product of her upbringing. Claire compared herself to a broken vase with pieces that would never fit back the way they should. Nikki remarked that they were all a little broken, but the question was whether Claire wanted to get better. Claire wondered if that was even possible after she'd been raised on lies. Nikki lectured that they were all stronger than they gave themselves credit for, and they just had to be brave enough to dig down to find it. Claire shared that she sometimes felt strong and capable, but there were other times it just seemed pointless. Nikki said no one could do it alone, and she stressed that Cole and Victoria wanted to be there for Claire. Claire thought she needed someone who knew the whole story and would tell her the truth. "Am I inherently evil?" Claire asked. Nikki promised not to judge Claire, who had been born perfect and innocent before an evil force had gotten in the way. Nikki reminded Claire that they'd saved one another's lives, and she implored Claire to describe how she spent her days there. Claire reported that she was getting up in time for breakfast and that she'd been sleeping better. She mentioned her group therapy and craft lessons, and she excitedly revealed that her new privilege was going on walks to other floors with the orderlies for exercise. Claire continued that she'd gone to pediatrics, where the kids talked to one another and knew all the nurses. Claire marveled that the parents read stories and played cards when they visited, and the moms and dads all smiled, even though they were worried. Nikki confirmed that it was what parents did so their children wouldn't be afraid. Claire sympathized that the kids were sick or injured, but she admitted she was sometimes jealous because she knew what family was supposed to be like. Claire confided that she'd wanted it for a long time, but wishing hadn't changed anything, so she'd stopped wishing. Claire wondered what Victoria had been like when she'd been little, and she bet Nikki had protected Victoria from the things and people that might have hurt her. Nikki recalled that Victoria had loved her horses, keeping them under control, yet letting them feel free. Nikki continued that Victoria had been an avid reader, and Claire mentioned that Victoria had dropped off books for her. Nikki recounted that her daughter had liked painting, going to museums, and being in her art studio, but Victoria no longer had much time for art, between work and family. Claire wanted someone to smile when they said her name and be proud of the things she'd done, like Nikki was with Victoria. Nikki realized that Claire felt very alone, and Claire stressed that she thought Jordan had been all she'd had. Claire pictured having a mother who'd loved her and living a life where she hadn't been expected to perform, pretend, and do what she'd been told without making waves. Claire imagined things would have been much different if someone had seen her for her and not as a weapon or a tool. Claire wailed that she kept thinking it wasn't fair, but then she heard Jordan in her head, telling her life wasn't fair and questioning why Claire thought she was special. "But I was. I was special for a little while, wasn't I? I was Victoria's baby," Claire cried. Nikki counseled that it would be wonderful if they could go back and correct the things they'd done to others and others had done to them, but all they had was the present, and they had to find a way to break free of the past. Claire wasn't sure she could, since Victoria saw her dead baby when she looked at Claire. Claire shared that when she looked at Nikki, she saw the horrible things Jordan had made Claire do.